Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zach Cherry, and with me as always is...
It's bright. Gonna burn off soon or it wouldn't be so bright. Feeling better? I feel like $1,000,000. They say you've bottomed out when you can't remember the night before. Baby, I'm gonna stop drinking. I just don't feel like it anymore. Did I keep you up last night? You look a little bit peaked. No? I guess I just slept heavy. Eddie of Edward is Truth.
And there goes like 50 potential listeners who couldn't get past that fucking quote. I thought you were gonna go for like, screw your
whatever
past.
You do, or whatever you do, don't. It's such a quotable movie.
Yeah.
I honestly could have said anything.
Wait, what movie?
Oh.
A Nightmare on Elm Street, released November 16th, 1984. That's right, 84. Not like that one person on YouTube who criticized me and said that it was 86 that one time. Which I will. I know,
geez.
Right? Spoken with such authority as well. No, it's 84. And this is a big one. I mean, not only that, but today, if you're listening or watching this on the release day, is August 2nd. And the significance of that is that it is Wes Craven's birthday. So we are honoring Wes with a podcast about one of his movies.
Yeah, one of his most infamous
movies.
Infamous.
Now, I know you get a little squirrely if we don't do this right away, so do you have a synopsis that you want to get going here?
I mean, kind of. I'm not going to lie. I tried something a little different this time. I hope you like it.
I'm sure I will.
Okay. You want to know who Fred Krueger was? He was a filthy child murderer who killed at least 20 kids in the neighborhood. Kids we all knew. It drove us crazy when we didn't know who it was, but it was even worse after they caught him. Well, all the lawyers got fat and the judge got famous, but someone forgot to sign a search warrant in the right place and Krueger was free just like that. A bunch of his parents got together and tracked him down. Found him in an old abandoned boiler room where he used to take his kids. I took gasoline and poured it all around the place and made a trail of it out the door. We lit the whole thing up and watched it burn. You say you're having nightmares, Nancy, and that Fred Krueger is the one terrorizing you, killing off all your friends in these dreams. But that can't be, because he's dead now. He's dead because Mommy killed him. I even took his knives. So you see, you can sleep. That's a rough synopsis, but it's an origin.
It's a very rough synopsis, and Andre is going to have his work cut out for him with that one.
I know. Good luck. Just footage of Marge Thompson, maybe. That'll help.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, this is one of your favorites. I don't know where it ranks for you, but I know that this is your franchise. You've made no secret of that. You've made no secret that Nancy is your final girl.
Final girl, yeah.
And you know, you also I believe started watching these movies when you were very young. Well, I think that for me the Nightmare movies came well after my introduction with Halloween and Scream and Friday the 13th. So this was kind of this was probably like between Friday the 13th and Texas Chainsaw Massacre that I kind of dipped my toe into the Freddy realm. So
that's a good placement.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to say because I just watched this before we recorded, and I hadn't seen this movie for maybe 3 or 4 years. I'm just trying to remember the last time I watched it, and it's a great movie. And you know, like it's a great. You're like just waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's a great franchise. I'm not like super connected to it in the way that I feel like most people are, you especially. Because even like as I was watching it today, I'm just like, yeah, this is all really good. I like it, but I'm just, it's not necessarily like what you were talking about, when usually you can do chores around the house while you have a movie playing. Because I don't think it's that kind of movie for me, but it's definitely one where I kind of like my attention, kind of wanes in and out, and I'm not really completely hooked into the entire thing, like I would be, for example, with Halloween, where I can watch that from start to finish. I don't know why. I'm hoping that like during this podcast episode we're going to get to the bottom of it, so this is kind of going to be a therapy session as to what it is that's keeping this from being a perfect movie in my eyes, but I'm hoping that you will enlighten me, and with that, why don't you talk about your relationship with the movie?
Oh dear God. Well, I mean, I usually like saying this might make some sense to people who don't understand, because I think there are a lot of people who share your opinion of the franchise, or of just, I guess maybe the style of these movies and whatnot, who prefer like their Friday the 13th or their Halloweens, or even, their Hellraisers or their Texas Chainsaw Massacres or whatever, like what have you. Maybe even their Conjureverses.
People prefer Hellraiser? As a franchise?
Well, maybe not as a franchise, but I was just, it's in my head. I was talking about the first two movies with somebody encouraging them to at least watch the first one. But anyway, but with this one, for me, it was like my Buffy before Buffy, the series. Because the movies in particular, like, like as a sequence, were like these episodic, quasi soap opera-esque, but with a wonderful, grandiose kind of like horror background, all happening simultaneously. Like it was kind of like a mixed bag of the best sort for an appetite of a young kid into a teen, into just a young person who just loves, that appetite, that kind of thing that I feel like Buffy really capitalized on, which was our thirst for horror, but our thirst for also like a kind of interpersonal, knowing the history of people and who they mean to each other, and what is it like for one person in their fight to pass the baton to the next one. And so that kind of relevance of the franchise has always been really, really strong for me. But with this movie in particular, it's just... particularly, I'd say the first 2/3 of it, because I will admit, somewhere around Nancy just kind of like being at home, the movie doesn't lose me, but it doesn't have me quite so much as everything that preceded. I love seeing us switch venues and seeing Nancy's evolution once she's reached her point of evolution and kind of like become like the final girl we've been waiting for.
Basically the Home Alone setting the traps.
Yeah, right. And even just like, like some of her, like her last kind of like exchanges with Glenn, and even like worrying about Glenn and pacing and writhing about, like, oh, Glenn, and everything like that. There are always moments that bring me back, like the "I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy," like that kind of stuff, and lock, and all that stuff. Like I love like I said, it's such a quotable movie. But I can understand how people, like, sometimes I find my mind wandering a little bit, or I'll like reach for my phone because I'm like, I know this part. But for everything that sets up Nancy's climb, because okay. The fact that she's introduced, and I always feel this, as kind of like the best friend. You get the impression from the beginning, if you're watching this movie for the first time,
she's essentially, because I was kind of like mirroring the opening of just like arriving at school, almost like in Wes Craven's Scream, because at that point, we'd already been introduced to Tina. Tina was our Sydney, and Nancy was more of like the Tatum character. And I feel that like even if you were to compare Nancy to a character in Scream, I feel that she's much more in line with a Tatum than a Sydney, just in terms of her kind of like her loyalty and protectiveness of Tina, just being a friend. So I definitely noticed that too, because she is introduced more in the periphery, and it's not until I think it's the moment where you kind of know, and we've talked about this before, where it's just, especially with Friday the 13th, where it's just like, oh, we're following little Annie, the cook who loves children and hates when people call them kids because it makes them sound like goats. An American original. And
yes, love her.
Yeah, and then it's not until like later on that because I said it, it takes a while to really get the sense that Alice is she's the final girl of this movie. And I don't think it wasn't until Rod shows up in Tina's backyard, and kind of like Tina regresses to this like, oh, someone's got to stay, like, you got to protect me from Rod, like they're just like, okay, she is not going to be able to handle herself in this scenario. Like, that's when like all eyes are now on Nancy. She's the one in charge here.
Well, because also there's another thing about the way Amanda Wyss plays Tina, particularly that first day of school, that scene before they're all like walking in and everything, where she seems genuinely interested in uncovering what happened to her, and she's finding out that her friends had nightmares too, and this look happens in her eyes where she just wants to know more. She just wants to kind of uncover, because she knows that these dreams aren't normal. So she feels, again, like they're setting her up to be this inquisitive kind of like, person who wants to get at the heart of things. And Nancy, the first thing I get from her is just like a genuine sweetness. Like Wes said, that one of the things he was looking for when he was casting the role was of Nancy was someone who would be your babysitter, who you trusted, like your favorite babysitter. And she definitely has that. And the fact that she's even dismissive of the dreams, like everybody has a bad dream in a while, it just makes it seem like, oh my gosh, she's going to get killed. And I don't want her to get killed. She seems like a really good friend, Yeah. So I still find it fascinating, like watching Tina kind of like meander and really give into the fear, kind of like move into her victimhood in her nightmare, or both nightmares that we experience, her opening one in the very beginning and then the one later on the street with the
yes,
the Oogie Boogie Man is God. Yes, with a completely different Freddy voice from Robert Englund for about half the movie. But Tina, he almost sounds like yes, he almost sounds like Tina Shepard's mom from Friday 7.
Friday
but
7, yeah.
Tina. But I will do impressions of her until the end of days. Yes, be very careful. I'm nursing a cold, guys. Sorry. Yeah. I'm going to try not to laugh. But anyway, so yeah, seeing basically like her brutalized in the way she is. We touched on this in the Poltergeist pod about like the rotating room really being established as a horror device in Poltergeist first, 2 years prior to this. And but this one, I feel, is the one that perfected it. Because in Poltergeist, it's memorable, but I don't really understand what's going on. In this one, I understand exactly what's going on. And every time it happens, something, I don't know if it's just, it's everything. It's the way Wes shot it. It's the way Amanda Wyss is playing it. I know that she was genuinely experiencing vertigo and like having a psychological breakdown as they were shooting the scene. Not in the footage, but in between, where she felt like she was falling and forgot which way the floor was, and Wes needed to pop his head up through a window, standing atop a ladder, and just kind of like coach her through it, say, look at me, I'm on the floor, and so are you. You're not falling. We're both on the floor. We're both, and look, this is all just crafted to look like this. It's not a real room. And it's like, and he just literally had to just kind of like talk her down. And I think that's really sweet of him, and really sweet of her that like she got so worked up that she just Wes!
And then they also do the same effect later on with Glenn's room.
Glenn,
with the blood geyser out of the bed.
It was the same room too. Like it was the same device. They dressed it to look different and everything. And also, the blood tilting was an accident because the room was not supposed to turn. It works. It looks like the blood is reaching for his mom. That's what I always liked about it. It's almost like, stay with us, Mrs. What's Glenn's last name?
Lance.
I should know, Lance.
Yeah.
Mrs. Lance, stay with us. Come be with Clarence. It's like, yeah, blah, blah. I don't like it, but I do like it. Anyway, but so what I love about that is like what hooks me into Nancy, apart from the fact that like she's also got that looming, that famous like spandex, wall with the looming Freddy skull coming with the fingertips and everything like that. So fucking iconic. And it never occurred to me, I think the first 6 times I watched it, that they cut away before she puts the crucifix back on and knocks on it and feels the real wall. Mm-hmm. So for the longest time, I thought it was the same shot that he's doing the spandex thing, and then she knocks on it and it's a real wall. And I was like, how the fuck did they do that? And it's like, oh, they cut away and they replaced it with an actual piece of something. Yeah. But still, it blew my mind as a kid.
And you can't notice the cut?
When I was a kid, I couldn't.
I didn't even know there was a cut there. I'll have to go back and look now.
Oh, there is. Yeah. There's a total. Yeah.
Not like a switching of the angle, or just like an actual cut,
like a cutaway, like he does.
Okay,
that,
so there's a cutaway. That's.
She looks up, and then I think they get a shot of her face, and then she grabs the crucifix and like kind of looks at it, and then they go.
Okay, I thought you meant that there was actually like a and then they like.
Oh no. No, just like cutaway. Sorry.
Well, there's a lot of tricks they do, like because when Freddy is running towards Tina down the alley, and that's obviously not Robert Englund, but then she runs directly into Robert Englund, but like the camera has already panned over to him, so it has the effect that they're both there, but he's now warped over to in front of her.
And it's early enough in our meeting Freddy that no, I don't think anybody's sitting there going like, that's not Freddy. Like, I mean, it's just kind of also because I feel like it's effective. It's weird. It also establishes him as a kind of shapeshifter, because all of a sudden he's shorter and hobbling and doing this weird kind of and it's all about just because the reason it works for me is because it's all about scaring her. I mean, even just like moments before that with the hanging arms that are obviously hanging from wires and that are kind of.
Well, I love that reaction she gives when he, pops out from the train. He's like, hey, Tina, like, watch this. Yeah. And slices off his fingers. And she's just, like, kind of registering it for a second. And then she just has this look on her face, like, and, proceeds to try to run back into the house. Like, it's so good. She did not do enough. The only other thing that I remember her being in was Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
She's been in a bunch of things,
Yeah.
I love her. She was in a movie I used to love with John Cusack called Better Off Dead. She played a character named Beth, who was...
from the 80s?
Horrible. Yeah, from the 80s. She did a lot of work in the 80s. She was in... she played Woody Harrelson's girlfriend on Cheers. She had a recurring role where she would come back and visit him from Indiana and stuff like that. And I feel like I'm forgetting something absolutely vital. But she worked a lot then. She's still working. And actually, should I talk about it now? You have a fun story. So let's hear it. I was going to a screening of that Shudder documentary Horror Noir before it was streaming. And it was happening out at the Egyptian Theater out here in Hollywood. And I remember a friend had invited me. We decided we were going to have dinner across the street at Michelli's, this singing waiter Italian restaurant or whatever, just because it'd be quick and easy and we could catch up a little bit before the movie. So we're sitting there, and they sit us in this like long kind of like
a communal
communal booth, like with all the like individual tables and everything, like where you're basically sitting next to a stranger and stuff. And this was pre-pandemic, so we weren't worried about like sitting next to each other. We didn't have no masks or anything. God, those days. And I know some people are living it now, but not me. Anyway, so we were sitting there, and this lovely woman is just sitting there, just kind of like, I don't even remember what she was doing. But I just thought, oh, what a lovely woman. I sat down, didn't really take her in because, I'm not going to stare at her. But I was talking to Rohan, my friend, and we were just breaking down all the movies that we saw. I was bitching about Mary Poppins Returns because I hated it, and I listed all the reasons why I hated it. And at one point, she got up and she asked us. She was like, "Excuse me, guys, I'd hate to disturb you, but would you mind watching my bag while I go to the restroom? I'm waiting for a friend and she's not here yet, and I really need to use her." It's like, "Oh, sure, absolutely. Don't worry about it. Yeah, it'll be fine." It's just like, "Thank you so much. Really, really sweet." And she wandered off, and Rohan said to me, "I think I know who that is." And I'm like, "Who?" He's like, you know the actress from Nightmare on Elm Street? Not Heather Langenkamp. And I'm like, well, obviously not. But I'm like, Amanda Wyss? And he's like, you know her name. And I'm like, of course I know her name. I love that movie. So I'm like, oh my God. I said, I didn't get a good enough look at her, but if it's her, oh my God, should we no, let's not, then we just kind of like geeked out like for a while hypothetically and thought, okay, play it cool. Because he started getting really excited. And I'm like, you need to calm down. You need to dial it down like by about 10 because you're going to scare her. And I want us to talk to her because she seems really nice.
Yeah.
So she comes back. She's like, thanks so much for watching my back. Oh, absolutely. No problem. She's like, and incidentally, I hated Mary Poppins Returns. I agree with you 100%. What did they do to that? I mean, especially as a sequel to the movie, because the book, and then we just got into Mary Poppins Returns and everything. And we really got into it. She was talking like a true cinephile, and I was loving it. And then I said, so I hope I don't embarrass you, because there was a lull in the conversation. I was like, I hope I don't embarrass you by asking you, but I just wanted to know, are you Amanda Wyss by any chance? She's like, you pronounced my name right, because everybody calls her Amanda Weiss, apparently. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, of course. Who does that? People. And I'm trying to keep it cool, because I'm like really, really excited. I'm like, oh my God, it's Amanda Wyss. She's like, yeah, actually, and I knew she was waiting for a friend, but what I didn't know was that the friend she was waiting for was Heather Langenkamp. And that's when she says, yeah, my friend Heather's coming. And I'm just kind of like, and she's just like, so you guys, are you here to see the movie? Because we have a friend who's in the horror noir movie. I was like, oh, that's what we're seeing. She's like, oh, you're seeing the movie, yeah, and everything. And she's like, so you're horror fans? And I was wearing this shirt at the time. People who are listening won't be able to hear, but it says Springwood.
So you planned that?
High school. No, I did not know. I just knew I needed to wear a horror shirt because I'm seeing a horror documentary.
No, I mean you planned. And
I love this movie. I planned this. Yes, tonight.
Podcast,
yes,
yeah.
I'm wearing a Springwood High School 1984 sports tee. Yeah. And that's what I was wearing that night. So I showed her. I said, look at this. This is what a big fan I am. She's like, oh my God, Heather's got to see that. And I'm like, okay.
Well, wait a second, because I remember when you told me this story once before, and the way she had said it, that she was waiting for a friend, and yes. She said, oh, you might know her. She was also in the movie with me, Heather. And right. It was like, right. It's just like how like coy of her to just right. be like, oh yeah, you might, if you're familiar with the Nightmare on Elm Street, it's you might recognize
to a guy who's wearing the merch. And then I showed off my merch and everything. So then Heather Langenkamp, who has been stuck in traffic for God knows how long, horrible, hideous rush hour traffic, finally shows up all windblown, and I can tell seeing her friend Amanda Wyss is like a breath of fresh air for her. She's finally at her destination. She finally gets to catch up with her friends. And that's when Amanda introduces her to these two guys at this table next to them. And I just remember this expression on Heather's face of, oh, great. And Amanda's telling them, and they're such fans of yours. Show her your T-shirt. And I was like, show her your T-shirt, Edward. And I'm like, here you go. And she's like, oh, that's great. And everything about her subtext was just saying, I am so fucking exhausted. Mm-hmm. Thanks. It's great to have and I didn't take it personally because it wasn't like an attitude. It was just, she's living her life and she's just not in the mood to make us the center of her focus or even be the center of our focus, Yeah. So I was like, we better back up. And meanwhile, my friend Rohan is like picking up his drink going like, so, and I'm like, no. And I'm trying to, I'm like giving him signals just like, and we're so like, stay here, stay with me. We're still at our table. They're catching up. Let them catch up. So we did. And Amanda tried to include us, I think, one more time with something. And we jumped on. And then I knew, okay, that door's closed because Heather just wants to talk to Amanda. Cool.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, my legend is sitting right over there. I just want her to be happy and have a good evening. That's all I want. Look at her. She's so pretty. And then, thank God, Rohan had the strength of spirit or the gall to ask them as they began leaving if they would mind taking a photo with us, which I never would have done. I'm never comfortable doing that. And they said, of course. And even Heather was like, yeah, absolutely. So we stood next to them and we took a photo with them. I am smiling so big in the photo. And it was just like this wonderful crystalline evening. Like, we carried that with us the rest of the evening. It was Horror Noir was a great documentary and everything. Like, the evening continued to be great, but just being able to kind of like rub elbows with the stars, as it were, and especially like in Hollywood, to do it with stars you actually respect and not, you know, you just know them because they're on magazine covers and you never see their movies. Like, these are two people who I love. Now when I watch them be friends on screen, I just sit there and go like, oh my god, and they're friends in real life, like, to this day. I really love, oh my god, the chemistry's real, it's real. You know, I'm just such a geek. So I don't know, how long did I take? I'm sorry, but yeah, if anybody's bored, I'm sorry. That's my story.
No, it's a good story.
Yeah, it's fun. It's lovely. I wish everybody to meet your favorite final girl and your favorite, you know, like.
Well, did you hear? Kristen Stewart is like a huge fan of Neve Campbell, and I guess she had seen her at a restaurant, and I can't remember like what the exchange was. I don't know if she was just like, oh, I'm too shy to go up to her. I don't know if she eventually did go up to her, or Neve Campbell noticed her and went up to her. But it was just like one of these moments where it's just like, I'm a huge fan. But I mean, it's different when it's like celebrity on celebrity. That's like kind of cute too, because it's like when stars get starstruck over someone else, and especially, you know, when it's someone like Neve Campbell, because like these are the people, these are like our people. This like in the horror genre, like these are like, you know, I could see J-Lo or whatever, bad example, and I'd just be like, oh, cool. But you know,
like, oh, her skin is so smooth.
But if I saw, if I saw Courtney Cox, I mean, maybe because Courtney Cox is very like A-list. But even then, like if I saw Courtney Cox, I'd be, oh my god, what do I do? I'm just gonna stand here and like be silent and respect her presence, and you know, only speak as spoken to.
I'd be like a sea anemone when they like pull inward, you know, and hide like in their little pouch, like metaphorically. I could feel all of my energy just being like, don't upset the air, don't make a mistake, don't trip on them, or like smack them in the face. You know, like all of a sudden all you think is all the things you could do wrong, and it's like I would just get tense, and just if we made eye contact, I'd be like, hi.
And I mean, it's also like they say never meet your heroes, because, you know, I mean, obviously like, you had a good experience, even though, you know, Heather wasn't having the best of nights, and that obviously had nothing to do with you. But it's just like, you know, suppose you met someone and you know, it was the wrong night, or it was like their actual personality, and it just, you know, kind of, you know, ruined A Nightmare on Elm Street for you forever, and Nancy, you know, like if that had been the case. So.
And I think I had about like 12 things I could have told her. Like I could have told her like, I Am Nancy, you know, and I really, really love watching her little documentary about like Nancy kind of falling through the slats of time and her trying to keep her alive and revive her, and watching the merch kind of like lose Nancy, and more Freddy, and she has a conversation with Wes Craven and a conversation with Robert Englund, and it's a pretty moving documentary. I feel like there are even more kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Explosive documentaries also. I mean, there are so many. I own them all. I've got like Never Sleep Again, the big, you know, like
the big 4-hour opus. I
think it's even more than 4 hours. Probably. But the opus that's a good word for it. The omnibus of stories and interviews. And then if you get the Blu-ray or you get the collector's DVD edition, you get all the extra interviews and stuff too. You get to hear all, you know, the stories that didn't make it to the final.
I think because I had purchased that and I put it on, not realizing how long it was, and just, you know, at a point I was just like, how long is this going on for? And then just checking the time and being like, oh, okay, I got to do this as a 2-parter. But okay, to move on from that lovely anecdote. You brought up something that I actually wanted to pose a question, because you did speak of how, you know, they're not necessarily like a lull in the movie, but it just kind of the way that it's presented is like there's a lot of the human drama of it with the horror backscape. So, you know, we talked about this with 13 Ghosts, but do you think that, you know, because there's always talk of, you know, reviving A Nightmare on Elm Street, but do you think that maybe this is something that could work as a television series?
I'd watch it. I mean, yes, of course.
But
I mean,
work even better than in the movie format, because in that case then you do get more time to allot to that character development, and and as we have seen through television series like Stranger Things, this most recent season has focused on a very Freddy Krueger-esque villain that is clearly an inspiration of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah. So we
Robert
can
Englund was
that
even
Robert Englund was a guest
star
in an episode of it as well. So he's like, it just shows that and especially after Chucky season 1, like we see that like television is a good medium for horror and horror franchises. So it's just like maybe this is something more of them should start exploring, because it's I feel like it's harder to make a movie than it is to make a television series. The TV is cheaper to produce. There's more places that you could distribute it, where like movies are expensive. Everything has to kind of line up exactly right with all the right variables at the right time, and that's why like we're 13 years later and we still don't have a new Friday the 13th movie. Obviously there's the lawsuit played a big deal into that, but Nightmare on Elm Street, like there's not like a whole lot that's stopping it other than like creatively, and I'm not sure, because I believe Wes Craven's estate now owns the rights to it. So
oh good.
I think it's just, I mean, like we hear Jason Blum kind of showboating and being like, I can revive the Nightmare on Elm, like I can do it. I got Ellen Burstyn back for extra. Like, shut up.
Oh dear God, no, get spread it around. Let some other people have a chance. But that said, as long as the right person is in the driver's seat to mount it, and I'm not even suggesting that it's someone who's like known and that like I have somebody in mind who could do it, but as long as it's the right person who's going to balance expertly honoring what came before, and while not being afraid to go into areas the franchise has not yet gone. Like one thing that I was really fond of in A Nightmare on Elm Street fan trailer that I saw on YouTube was watching the Freddy that they had cast seated on a bed with a little girl. And I think, if I remember, I haven't seen it in a long time, but if I remember correctly, they're doing the 1-2 Freddy's Coming for You sing-songy a song with each other. And it was all he was doing was singing with a little girl like on her bed, and it was horrible. I mean, it was in the best way, I was just kind of like, if we can crack the code and like kind of like get us back to, because there are things in the franchise that I think work in terms of just like, like I said before, like the passing of the baton, because some people have to die. Obviously, we have to hire young people, and some of them have to die because otherwise Freddy's not a threat. Yeah. But we also need. I'd love it if they could incorporate characters from the lore. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's
the way they.
That's what Chucky showed us, is that you have to honor the mythology, and obviously Chucky is probably the best example of a franchise that has been like continuous with everything that happened. Like there are no paradoxes that have been presented in its continuity. Everything is canon from A to Z. We don't include the remake because that is bullshit.
Yes, yes.
But then you have
Don Mancini's movies, essentially.
Yeah. But then you have something like the I Know What You Did Last Summer television series, which is like the wrong way to go completely. Or I mean, that failed like right out of the gate. But it just like it has nothing to do with anything that came before it. It's just like, who are you marketing this television show for? Like, it's clearly not the fans who loved it before. And you have a lot of competition if you're trying to hit this demographic of Gen Z or whoever it is that is going to watch this, because there's so much else that's out there for them to absorb, and you're a property that they haven't heard of before. So it's just like you can't try to please everyone, and I think we mentioned this in some form or another. It's like when you try to make everyone happy, you make nobody happy. And I think that the thing with the Nightmare franchise is that it's encompassed such a long span of time that, you know, you have fans of it who were fans in the 80s. You have fans of it who were fans, you know, around Freddy versus Jason. And I mean, I'm sure that there are fans of the 2010 remake. Not as many, but you know, there's still people who understand that. And, you know, we're 12 years removed from that now, but you know, all those people are still around. They're still fans of that material at varying periods of time. So it's you have a built-in audience, and as long as you're honoring that legacy and that fan base, then you're gonna have a hit on your hands. Because, like, look at Chucky. You know how many times I thought that franchise was dead. And then for it to, like, because I think that we all pretty much, I think the first time we probably thought it was dead, it wasn't really on my radar, was probably after Child's Play 3, because there wasn't really anything until Bride of Chucky.
For a while, yeah.
And then even after Bride of Chucky, we didn't get anything until Seed, and Seed was such a huge upset for a lot of people that, you know, that was the last theatrical release. And, you know, once something goes straight to video, that's kind of like the kiss of death. And it was like 5 years between I believe Curse and Cult, and then probably another 4 or 5 years for the series. So it just felt like every time that we would get a new Chucky, it was just like, well, this is it. This is the end of Chucky. But somehow he just keeps coming back, and it's
That's
a testament
how much work
to,
it takes.
Yeah, it's a testament to Don Mancini and the fans. And I think, like, surely if a franchise like Child's Play, who I would feel that Child's Play is, you know, within the same realm of a Nightmare on Elm Street, just in terms of its lasting legacy. But, you know, comparatively, like, Freddy Krueger and Chucky, I feel that, like, Freddy Krueger would be like the big powerhouse, like, horror heavy that more people would be on board with. Not to say that people aren't on board with Chucky, but I just feel like it's more people probably are familiar with the Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, I feel like more people have seen more Nightmare on Elm Street movies than people have seen Child's Play movies, if that makes sense.
Maybe. The thing for me is, like, ultimately I want to see legacy characters, like, and this goes beyond the movie that we're discussing, but I want to see Sister Mary Helena, you know, Amanda Kruger, Freddy's mother. I want to see I know it's not, I don't know if technically it's canon, but there's something that I heard in one of the Nightmare on Elm Street comic books where Nancy has reemerged as a dream angel, basically, who, like, sweeps into people's dreams to try and fight Freddy and try and protect people and try to continue, like, this legacy of endowing kids with, you know, with their own power, with their own knowledge.
She's
like all you have to do is,
she's like the Freddy Krueger but the light, you know.
Yeah, exactly. She's the light to his
I mean,
dark,
I
would love to see that.
I feel that, like, if you know, if there were characters, because I know that even when Freddy versus Jason was in its production stages, which, you know, lasted years and years, but at one point they did want to bring back Lisa Wilcox as Alice Johnson. So that's definitely a character that, you know, is still there that they could have return. But you know, if Chucky has shown us anything, it's just like, like build a story around new characters, but, you know, have them, you know, have some sort of relation to the legacy character. I mean, like, very much like Five Cream, which I think it's
doable. I think it's absolutely doable. Is my answer. Also, just because, again, like, something that I love about this franchise that starts with this movie is basically, like, giving you insight to somebody. Like, what I love about Nancy is the insight into her growth, and it's I don't think you could show somebody her first scene in this movie and show somebody her last scene, and
two different characters.
It could just kind of, Yeah, I feel like I don't know if it could make sense to anybody, or maybe not the last scene, but like her defying Freddy, like turning her back on him, and the way she tells him that you're nothing, you're shit. But I love saying it. I love whispering that line. But when she
I take back.
But yeah, I feel
every
bit. I mean, even even the like that. Yeah, even that placement that she's speaking from, like right there, like in the crook of her, just in between her teeth. The way she
all
talks
of her line deliveries are amazing. Like there one that like sticks with me is like even at the beginning when we're still not really familiar with her, when Glenn is playing the tape recorder thing for his mother, and she like messes around with it, and then she's just like laughing, and she just gets all serious for a second. She's just like, it worked like a charm.
Yeah. So cute.
Yeah.
Oh my god, she's so great.
She's so good.
But what I love about it is like even because I started to go into this, like after Tina's taken out, and we get that wonderful horror reaction, that close up of her with her eyes widening and everything like that, as she's taking in, like the corpse of her friend, and I
had
really,
never realized how blue Heather Langenkamp's eyes were. Like, and because this is probably the first time I'd actually seen it on Blu-ray as well, but it was just like they're so like deep blue. I'm just like, I thought her eyes were brown for some reason, but
oh no,
yeah, they really like stuck out to me.
I was made painfully aware when I used to work in a stock room a few years back, and I was talking to this 18-year-old who was working with me, and he had never seen any of the Nightmare movies or anything like that, but he'd watched videos about them. And I was like, you need to sit down and watch a damn movie. And I asked him so you know who Nancy is, because he wanted to know who my favorite final girl was, I think. And I told him, like, Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street. He's like, no. And he immediately took out his phone and Googled her and everything. And he was just like, all he said was, she's pretty. And I couldn't get him off of his phone for like the next like 15 or 20 minutes, because he was just sitting there scrolling through photos of her going like, pretty. And I'm like, oh my god, would you just like get her the phone? She'll still be there. Behavior. Yeah, right. I mean, I was 18 once too. I don't think I was like that, but I'm sure I was like that in my way. But anyway, eventually I was just kind of like, yeah, she's very, very pretty. You can look at that after we finish this. I really do need your help now. But anyway, yeah, she is pretty. And then afterwards I gave him a reward, because he'd only been looking at photos from movie 1 and movie 3. And I was like, oh, you haven't seen her in New Nightmare? And he was just like, what's that? And I was like, okay. And I gave him some photos of her in New Nightmare, and then he was right back to, and I'm just like, okay, there you go. Enjoy your evening. But what I love about after that is just like her parents, and the way like her father greets, quote unquote, her mother. It's just like, good to see you too, Donald. Whatever. And in that incredibly melodramatic way that Ronnie Larson has, that I used to not like it when I was a kid. I used to think it was bad acting, and that it didn't belong in this movie. Like, I thought, this movie's so good, it doesn't need that. And I was just like, as I've grown older and older, the older I get, the more I really truly appreciate her performance, especially after I saw the reboot, when I saw Connie Britton, who I love, but I watched Connie Britton play Nancy Holbrook's mother, and she's playing it straight, and it's so uninteresting. I just want to watch her clutch herself in her own kitchen while her daughter shows her, Fred Krueger, Mom. Fred Krueger, It's like, I need that. That's my fix. Anyway, but the fact that Nancy... sorry, I keep jumping around, but the fact that Nancy is sitting there and her parents are like, arguing about like her being over where there's a murder. So, I don't know what you were doing at that house overnight, blah, 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 blah. And she's just trying to explain to them, and they're just completely, puts me totally on her side. The fact that they're like saying, maybe you don't think murder is serious. It's like, fuck you, Mom. Yeah. That's not what she said at all.
How could you say that?
I know, the fact that she's just like shrieking at them, like, Mom, get off my ass. And then like, all right, I'm going to take a breath. What I meant was, their fights weren't that serious. I'm turning into Jack Nicholson or something right now. But but what I love is just, it always works on me with this movie. I always cry when she just kind of like falls apart and goes like, that's why we were there, Mom. Because she didn't want to be alone. And she just starts crying. And I'm sitting there just like, this poor kid. She just lost her best friend, and she doesn't understand anything that's going on. She doesn't know. She's at her most, like, I know nothing that's happening right now. For all I know, Rod did kill her, you know? And now us being there didn't help her. So what good am I? Like, what am I going to do now? And then immediately for her to, like, want to go to school and just kind of, like, keep her head, you know, on straight, because she'll just go crazy if she stays up in her room. And then when she gets, like, pulled into that bush by Rod, and she's asking all the right questions, you know, and not accusing him, but pointing out facts that, like, you were the only one there, so somebody was doing things and you didn't even. And then it happens later in the jail cell too, when she's like, so somebody was there and you didn't get. Did you get a look at him? Couldn't see the fucker, just saw what's happening. And anyway, what I love about her that feels very Final Girl to me, where I'm just kind of like, now we're getting the Final Girl from her. Aside from all of my empathy is now with her, the fact that Rod full on threatens her. Like, you know, sitting there just kind of like, don't you try and save citizens. I don't remember the exact line. I'm warning you. That's the part I remember. And then all of a sudden her dad pops out with his gun and he does, you know, a take. And then he runs away and her dad's like about to shoot him. And what does she do? She darts right in front of the gun because she knows her dad's not going to shoot her. And this guy was about to, like, you know, like grab her or threaten her or something like that, and she's still willing to, like, take a bullet for him. And I'm just like, okay, this girl has, like, some massive courage.
You,
like,
used me, Daddy.
Yeah, right. What are you doing going to school anyway? But
John Saxon.
Oh, like, God.
Everything. Yes. You know, I'm you know, obviously this is not one of my favorite horror movies, but this is top tier still. And I feel like, you know, he is in 3 powerhouse horror movies as far as I'm concerned. This, Black Christmas, Tenebrae. And it's just like every time he shows up, like he's so innately watchable in anything that he does. That's, you know, like, I'm glad that, you know, he was another actor that, you know, continued to come back for more movies in this franchise, because, you know, if he was just like the one-off, you know, that would have been very upsetting.
Yeah. And again, like, there's something about the way he interacts with Ronnie Larson as Marge that the two of them feel like divorced parents to me. Like, they obviously don't get along anymore. Like, the bloom is off the rose. They are not getting back together. Yeah. But they still talk about Nancy as if she's this, I can't say problem they need to solve, but they have concern for her, genuine parental concern.
They're co-parents.
And I love that. But I think I get it the strongest after Rod's funeral, when they get that amazing
that
shot.
Knowing look. That's
yes, that amazing shot of Nancy sitting in her blue dress, because Nancy wouldn't have a black dress. Wes decided. There he is making, you know, good decisions about, like, the wardrobe of his leading lady, like he did with Sid, carrying the clothes in her overnight bag that she was going to wear to school the next
Scream,
day.
yeah.
But in Scream. But so they put her in that blue dress, which I think works, actually. I remember even, like, on an almost subliminal level, just kind of going like, oh, because she wouldn't have a black dress. But just that look of determination as she's sitting there, kind of like stewing in, I don't know, this broth of, you know, the aftermath of now 2 friends of hers who are dead. And she's starting to kind of, like, get a feel. She knows, she understands a bit more every day, like, what is happening to her. And it's just about, what am I going to do next? And then the parents, like, when she confronts them and talks about Fred Krueger and everything like that, or even talks about the boiler room and about, like, all of that. And they're like, the dramatic, you know, reactions. And then they look at each other. And it's just like, go get her some help. She's just like, oh, I've got something better. No, he says, like, get her a good night's rest or something. She says, I've got something better. I'm going to get her some help. She takes her over to Charles Fleischer, and that's when Ronnie Larson has that incredible moment at the clinic where she's like, they think she's just about to get to sleep, and she's like, thank God. And she takes out her cigarettes and lights one up in the clinic, and just goes and just asks him, What the hell are dreams anyway? Lights up and smokes as they discuss the human psyche. Hilarious to me.
Yeah.
So all of that, everything about his performance, everything about her performance. I also, in terms of just like where the movie goes from there, I think my favorite scene of all is the confrontation between Nancy and Marge in the kitchen. The moment where I already, with the hat with the Fred Krueger, but what I love about it is the staging of it, because I see Heather Langenkamp literally like move in on her mother when she's like saying, or maybe I should just grab that bottle and veg out with you. Just get good and wasted until, I can't remember what the great line is. And then she smacks her, and then she backs away. And then Marge starts to say, like, Fred Krueger can't get you. He can't be. And she's like, you knew about him? And starts to move back into position and close in on her mother. And you act like it was something I was making up. And I'm like, oh my God, she's going to hit her. Like, I'm always, there's something about the dynamic. Even the way it opens up with, like, Marge.
Yeah, she grabs the bottle and just drops it on the floor. Very much like
screw sleep.
What was the black phone?
Yes.
that we just did the podcast John last month with the sister and the bottle of vodka. Total nightmare reference there. But
Heather Langenkamp did it better. But also she moves into she's that's what the beginning of like her moving into a real parental position, and her mother moving into kind of like this diminutive
I love like when Nancy comes home and there's all the bars are on the windows and she just goes in opens the door, mother.
Yes. Yes.
And then
the last line she
Marge
says,
just kind of like sidles out from the kitchen, lights up a cigarette. She might have a bottle of the vodka under her arm. I don't know. That was another thing. Like every time like we would go and check on her, like when Nancy would open the door just to see there's Marge putting linens away, but there's another spare bottle of vodka.
No. She's not putting linens away. She's pulling out her next hidden bottle. Because she is good and wasted. She veges out like that night totally. But also just like I think one of the reasons this movie has like such an incredible hold on me, and why the franchise does at large, but really this movie, because this is Wes's baby until New Nightmare, like those are his two real
he wrote
contributions.
Dream Warriors.
Oh, well, he wrote a draft of it. He didn't write the draft that you and I have now. There were a lot of different things happening. There's one point I remember seeing a sheet of the script that Wes, and he had a co-writer too, this young man, I can't remember his name at the moment, but there was a moment where Freddy is talking, he's cornering Kincaid, and it's just something like, get over here, Kincaid, so I can fuck your little ass, or something like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, that is not the movie they made. It's like very graphic, and a lot of things that they alluded to that then got developed in the movie that we can talk about when we get to that pod. But this one was largely like, I mean, there's also a lot of Bob Shea in this movie. I know his idea was the stairs, the gooey Bisquick stairs that Nancy sinks her feet into.
Love that.
Yeah. It really works.
I really love how like the lines of like dream and reality are so blurred in so many places. Like, especially when we get to see the moment where Nancy is like, okay, to Glenn, like I'm gonna go to sleep, just like stand watch, and she leaves the house, is walking down the sidewalk, and then she calls out to him, and he just like peeks out from behind a tree, and he's like, yeah, I'm still here. So there's so, and even like the bathtub like scene, like she's clearly like she's still kind of like straddling the line between consciousness and sleep, that they're you can even like look at the ambiguity of the end of the movie, because it's just like, at what point, where are we, what is real, what is not? So it's like Wes Craven plays with that so much in this movie. It's sometimes more effectively than others, but
I mean, I feel like
it.
Everything that sets up Tina, I feel like, is probably it at its most effective, and then the rest, because all of that works so well, the rest of the movie kind of like rides those coattails. And it's not like there's no work that's like valid beyond that, but I mean, I feel like, because the next kill after Tina is Rod, and that's another one that doesn't necessarily scare me because I can't quite make sense of it. The fact that his sheet is now, you know, cornered and like spun around into like a little, I don't know, like what would you call it? Like, I don't know, rope? Yeah, a noose, but a noose that's like a snake-like noose that's like coiling up his leg and up his body, and then wraps itself around his neck and then pulls him up to hang himself just in the nick of time. Yeah. I mean, that was another thing that made me wonder, because I think for the longest time I used to believe that the dream movie, really, that doesn't end with this movie, starts when Nancy sets her alarm, goes out seeking Krueger, and she seeks him for a long time. That's another moment where my mind's kind of like wandering, where she's like, I mean, I like there's always things to bring me back, like the little hand kind of scurrying out of the shot and everything, the little glove kind of doing that little tarantula thing, and Krueger, I'm here. There's so much I can quote from that movie. But then and she thinks that she's not going to get him. She even falls on her own trellis. It's like, fuck, oh my God, she's looking at her watch. Krueger, where are you, Krueger? And then finally and then she jumps on him. Oh my God, it's so amazing. Yeah. And then when she wakes up and the little trellis and rose bushes are like alongside her head, and then they get pulled out, and all of a sudden she's on her bed. Yeah. And she's like, turns out I'm crazy after all. And then Freddy is now, we're led to believe he's in our world. Yeah. I always thought, oh, that's when she didn't really wake up. She never woke up. So the rest of the movie is a dream. And that's why the way her mother dies doesn't really make sense. And the way the way he survives the fire and everything like doesn't make sense. But I'm wondering, every time I watch it, it always feels like the dream is starting earlier and earlier for me, like the inescapable dream, to the point where Robert Englund actually said he thinks the whole movie is a dream, is a whole nightmare. Yeah, which is, I haven't watched it through that lens yet, which is odd because I've seen it so many times, but I just get too... Well,
I mean, like, even like if you look at the beginning after Tina's initial nightmare, and we kind of go see them at school the first day there, and the shot starts off with the girls doing the skip rope, and it's in that very like dream-like state in slow motion, and then it just like kind of goes to them pulling up in the car, and then all of a sudden we're in reality. So it's like it blends together in a way that, you know, it could all be a dream. You never know, because I mean, like, just the fact that they are all alive at the end when they pull up in the car. And I actually watched, because there's several different versions of the ending, and there's the one that I mean, I think that they picked the right one.
I do too.
But there was another one that was similar, where the hood of the car goes up, and Nancy's like screaming, and while this happens, then Freddy bursts his arm out through the door and pulls Marge in before the car even pulls away. So like Nancy like witnesses this. Then there's another one where nothing happens to the car, and they drive off, and
bye, Mom.
Bye, Mom. Yeah, the terrible voiceover.
ADR,
and then the mom gets pulled through. And then there's another one where they pull away, bye, Mom, and nothing happens. It's just you know, the happy ending. So, you know, I think...
And the one where Freddy's driving, too. There's one where Freddy's driving the car.
That was not included on the...
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I had it in... I had it in my Nightmare Encyclopedia in my DVD box set, that it was black, and it had all the spines of the DVDs made Freddy's back, and he had his gloved hand behind his back, and it was just a silhouette. And it's called the Nightmare Encyclopedia. I still have it somewhere here, but came out in the 90s. Oh, here it is, the Nightmare Series Encyclopedia, out of print. Got it.
Interesting.
At Amoeba. This was the last disc of that, and it had like a maze where you could go through and uncover basically all of the endings that they shot. And also there's one, actually, okay, we're talking deleted scenes. There is one scene that I am so angry did not remain in this movie, because I feel like it gives it even more depth and guts that makes it, I don't know, it makes me feel a loss. And maybe it's just because I'm a sibling, but it's in the speech basically that I read at the top of this, where Marge is basically telling Nancy the story, the origin story of Freddy and why he's dead and she can sleep and all of that. One thing that was left out, I don't even remember if it's on the Blu-ray. I saw it somewhere in my, bevy of resources. Nancy finds out, and it was shot. Nancy finds out that she had a brother.
I remember
who was
that.
one of the children who Freddy abused and killed. And she never knew about him because she was just a baby, I guess, when he died, and he was like in preschool or something. She never even knew about him. And it's like, it just gives me one more thing for Nancy to fight for, is just like this, this brother she never knew that was taken from her, that was also kept, not just that, but kept a secret, and now she knows him. And it's like, I don't know, something about that felt incredibly poignant to me, and I'm sad it got cut. I don't know, it worked for me. But while we're talking about
how do you feel about because I mean, I don't know if this is necessarily a criticism, but clearly like Freddy is not as present in this movie as he is in the sequels. So I don't know, how do you feel about that? Do you think that he should have been in it more? Because I mean, this is where it could come in. If, this was, the franchise, was kind of more of a television series. You would have that episodic thing where, at the beginning you just established your characters, and then the looming threat of evil in Freddy Krueger, and then as the episodes went on, then you could start to delve more into who Freddy Krueger is, kind of like what they do in the franchise, really, because I mean, you find out more about him. You totally with every chapter, but it's just you're basically taking 7 or 8 years to do that, rather than in a single season of a show.
Yeah, but I don't know how much deeper they could delve into his past at this point, as opposed to maybe bringing in people who know his past to kind of explain it and hand it down. I always love that shit. That's very soap opera-y too. For you to learn things, for you to hear something be told to somebody that you already saw and you already know that it happened, but the drama is in watching the person who doesn't know absorb it and how they absorb it. That's what soap operas at their best are, relaying information to people and seeing how are you connected and how is it affecting you. So I would like that, but but that's why I'm talking about also going in other dimensions, like seeing Freddy actually with children for a change, seeing him in his element. There's something about that would be terrifying to me, and I would never want to see anything happen to a child, of course, but it would definitely make me go, somebody get that kid out of there. All of a sudden the stakes are higher. But because that's another thing that this movie gets criticized for is, and this whole franchise, I've heard people in the past criticize it because they say, if he was a child killer, then why is he always going after teenagers? And I'm like, well, for the first movie and for the third movie, namely, it's pretty spelled out why. These were people who were children when he was alive and in his element, and if Marge's murder tells us anything, it's not really about the kids at this point. It's about getting revenge on the parents, and whether that's through murdering their children, whatever age they may be, or whether it's gaining direct access to them, because Marge was the one who stole his knives, so there's something personal there.
It's funny that it's the second movie that's called The Revenge of or Freddy's Revenge, sorry.
Freddy's Revenge,
because that's, I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, but that's, an entirely new...
On who? Yeah, Freddy's Revenge on who?
It's like Jaws the Revenge,
It is exactly like that, because it makes absolutely no sense.
And you know what? Even if you look at Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, I mean, some revenge, but still, it's just really? There's, I mean...
Revenge of the Sith? Maybe? Yeah. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie enough to remember.
know.
But
you're going into a whole different territory that I know nothing about. So
right. Another thing that I adore is Nancy isn't just kind of like she's not just kind of like a shit kicker with her mother. I love watching her with Glenn also, the way he gets into her bed and just kind of like lays back like, all right, we're gonna have a night. Yeah, if you don't mind. As she gestures away. And then later when she asks him to watch her sleep and he falls asleep. Yeah. And I wrote down the line just like, Glenn, you bastard. I just asked you to do one thing. Just stay awake and watch me. Just wake me up if it looked like I was having a bad dream. And what did you do, you shit? You fell asleep. Every time she smacks him, I lose my shit. And I laugh and I can't because I'm just going to start coughing again. But oh my God, gives me so much happiness to watch the lack of shit she takes from him.
Wes
oh my God,
Craven
it's amazing.
is so good at like directing his final girls because I'm just like Heather and Nev, like not only do they have the best lines, which I mean like obviously Wes Craven wrote A Nightmare on Elm Street, he didn't write Scream, but you know like everything that Sydney says is also so quotable. Like, you know, once she moves more into her badassery, like in the later sequels, like you know, even in, I'm thinking like even like Scream 4, she's just like, you're forgetting the first rule, like don't fuck with the original, or you know, even just like anytime she's defiant in the face of evil, and you know, especially like in Scream 3, of just like, are you done yet? I've heard this shit before.
I've heard all this before. Yeah, I love it. Oh my God.
And of course, like facing up against Laurie Metcalf and like and all that stuff. It's just like just whenever that like the rebellious streak comes out in her, and you know, and I feel like that's like a trait of Wes Craven Final Girls that, you know, is missing from, you know, a lot of the you know, the broader spectrum of Final Girls.
Yeah, and also going back into this movie, I this is one of those movies that I go back into and I really just kind of settle because I have seen it so many times. I feel like, you know, I've seen it too many times. You know, like it's rare that I find something new. It's more just kind of like playing with your favorite toys, you know. Yeah. But and that's very nostalgic. Like, it really puts me back into a childlike mind. But the thing is, one thing that I noticed for the first time, I think, was the use of, I mean, noticed in a way that I could distill into almost a point of view. The use of Freddy's breath while he's constructing the glove during the opening sequence of the movie, like that even precedes the opening title. Yeah. And it's just, what I love about it is, it made me think for the first time ever about Michael Myers, but it made me think about Michael Myers because it didn't. Because I'm listening to the heavy of the movie Breathing, but Michael Myers has this incredible detached, I'm merely existing, this is the sound of me existing inside the mask breath, you know, that's just, I don't even gonna do it, but you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And then this breath, there's malicious intent behind it. There's a snarl and a laugh, like you know, it's just gross. It just sounds pervy. Yeah. And everything about it made me uncomfortable again in a great way. And that doesn't always happen with me with this movie. So that was something that made me happy. But something that does always happen to me with this
Robert
movie.
Robert Englund, I mean, like, we haven't even really like gotten into it with him.
My God.
And actually, I'm sure you're aware of this, but he wasn't the original pick. And you know who was, right?
Yeah. Remind me, though. I can't remember right now.
It was David Warner.
It was David Warner. Okay.
Just passed away yesterday.
I know.
Or the day before.
The day before we recorded this.
Yes. July 24th, I believe. So rest in peace. David Warner obviously was Gus in Scream 2.
Yes, among other things.
One of our cherry picker pickings But he was also in the Omen, just in terms of horror movies. But he was originally lined up, and there's even, you can search it on online. There's images of him in the Freddy Krueger makeup. And then for
designed for him,
for whatever reason, I'm not sure what it was, but it ended up going.
I think it was a scheduling conflict. He was doing another film, and they needed to do reshoots, and that contract was not yet wrapped up. So it was best for him, just because he would have pushed everything back, and they were running scared because they shot this whole movie in a month. Mm-hmm. So not including like reshoots and stuff like that happened after the fact, but the principal photography was a month, and. David Warner would not have been available, and they didn't have the means to, so it was just about finding somebody else. But and David Warner, that would have been a very different Freddy, because I've seen David Warner in a number of movies. He has a very enviable career because he's been in all kinds of movies. He's been in like really, really high prestige shit. He's been in like B, C, and D movie level bullcrap that was obviously because he's a working actor and he needed to pay the bills. So, and he always did good work in everything that he did. But his Freddy, I suspect it's weird to kind of second guess what kind of Freddy Krueger he would have been, but I can't imagine him having the mania that Robert Englund has, at least in this first movie, with a totally different Freddy laugh we never hear again.
More restrained in that performance, so I don't think that Freddy would have gone on to be the character it was, and and not to say that David Warner wouldn't have done Freddy successfully, but I don't think that it might not have gone into the direction of being a franchise with several more entries, and especially like a Freddy versus Jason years later, because Freddy is known as such a comic book character at this point, and that's largely due to what Robert Englund brought to the role of it, and I know a lot of people there's criticisms of the later sequels where it literally becomes Looney Tunes at one point, with painting a tunnel or something. I can't remember what it was exactly.
Or he pushes a bed of spikes beneath someone who is falling from the sky, and he literally he does a Bugs Bunny take where he's basically kind of laying on the floor, pushing with the backs of his elbows and and just kind of sits there and just kind of hunches and looks to the camera almost like Bugs Bunny, it's hard work, but it pays off, being evil. Kind of thing. It's so
but I even noticed in this movie there's a lot of he's very clumsy, because he gets the hammer that Nancy sets up, and not only that, but he allows himself to fall over the banister. There was no need for him to do that, but it's just I'm just gonna be really dramatic about this and fall over, and then obviously down in the cellar and being lit on fire, and then running up the stairs and Nancy opening the door to shove him as he tumbles down the stairs again. So that I noticed a lot of almost like Ghostface in nature of just stumbling over a lot of things. Another thing, and actually I know someone pointed this out once, because they said that in Scream 96 this was a reference to A Nightmare on Elm Street, and I don't know if it was necessarily a reference, but maybe more so just Wes Craven's style that he had incorporated into Scream as well. But when we get that right before Tina's death, and they're tussling in the backyard, and and then all of a sudden, I think it might have been before or after the sheet goes over them and they're in the bedroom, but she goes and grabs his face and pulls it off, and it's kind of the muscle tissue and bone underneath, and the bulging eyes. And it was just comparative to in Scream when Casey removes the mask from Ghostface, where she infamously sees who it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's no longer up for debate. We know who it is. But no, all of those elements, we've already talked about the voice and about the other actors who play him in this movie, and the space holders, as it were, who still work for me. you can tell Robert Englund is really still discovering and making discoveries and still kind of like getting his footing as to who this character is. Ironically enough, I feel like he more closely resembles in all the sequels kind of like the take that he starts in part 2. This movie feels largely isolated, but the thing that is definitely there that would have been interesting to see how David Warner would have manifested, because it's inescapable with this character, because it starts with the origin of the character for Wes, is the vital part of the formula for Freddy is someone who gleans a lot of satisfaction and humor from scaring the shit out of a child.
Yeah.
Because you've heard the story, the Wes Craven story about when he was a little boy, right? And the drunk.
Nope.
Oh my God. Okay, I won't linger on it too long because it's in a bunch of documentaries and I don't want to bore anyone who's already seen the documentaries. But when he was a little boy, he heard a noise outside of his window. It was nighttime and he lived in this like apartment house and everything like that. And he was looking out the window because he wanted to see like what's the noise. And he saw this man who was wearing a snap brim hat like Freddy's. And my cat's meowing. She doesn't want to hear the story. But so this, and he knew at the time as an adult, like when he would retell this story, he was probably just a drunk on the street who was just having a bad night.
Yeah.
But he was just a man in the dark to this little boy, Wes Craven, and he was just kind of slinking along, like passing under like street lamps and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And Wes was transfixed. Because all of a sudden the guy stopped, like he knew what was going on, like he knew something was going on. Yeah. He looked up because he could tell someone was watching him, and he found Wes. Mm-hmm. And he looked in the window and just stood there and watched back with a smile on his face. And Wes slowly backed away from the window. And he counted to, 100 or something once the guy was out of his eye line. And then once he counted to whatever the highest number he could, and he thought the guy surely is not there anymore, he moved back toward his window, and the guy, not only was the guy still standing there, but he did this. Like leaned forward and opened his eyes even wider, like, yes, I'm still here looking at you. Oh, and wow. That's when the little boy Wes was like, he must have pissed himself. He doesn't say it in the story, but I bet he did. Because then...
We need to thank whoever that vagrant was, because he is responsible for... at least 2 successful horror franchises that would never have happened if he didn't disturb this child enough to become this auteur of horror. Yeah. Horror.
Because also, because then there's that's one thing I love about it is just that's why I feel like all of this works, because it's all entrenched in things that Wes picked up either through his own direct experience or through like reading the newspaper when he was reading about the young boys who had escaped Cambodian camps, concentration camps, who came to this country and were dying mysteriously because of nightmares that they were having that felt more real, they said. When they would talk to professionals and talk to their family, they'd say the nightmares felt more real than any other kind of nightmare, and they didn't understand. And the family would say, well, obviously, we've come from this very, very kind of like dire situation and everything. It's natural that you're going to experience some trauma, and that, you're going to carry it with you, and it's going to manifest in ways. We just need you to sleep. We just need you to get to sleep. And then one after the other, it was a series of these stories that he kept reading that were never like front page news. They were always, like maybe 3 inches, 4 inches, and then finally one got together that was about maybe 12 inches, and they found out that a boy had dropped dead and was screaming. His family walked in. It looked like he was awake, screaming, and then he just fell down, stone dead. And the autopsy, they could find no cause of death. It was just this mysterious thing.
I think
that
that's
made him
what's
want to
so
put that in the movie
great
too.
about Wes Craven, because I mean, like a lot of like the big powerhouse directors. Have a very distinct like calling card of just whatever how they go about their creativity. And with Wes, he did basically just read the news. He was a very what's the word I'm looking for, scholarly person, very well educated, very well read. So he gleaned all of his material from the world by absorbing it. And then you have directors like Dario Argento, who like all of his source material comes from his dreams and nightmares and things like that. So everyone is different, and I feel like you don't see a lot of that these days. I feel like new directors are more so into homage.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, because I mean, like, this even applies to Jordan Peele, and that's not to say that he's completely just ripping people off.
Derivative.
Right. Not like even like Quentin Tarantino. They're obviously have their own unique style, but they're mostly going back and taking from things, which is fine. I mean, like, art is like that. And that's basically how the Scream franchise and, Scream even came to be in the first place. But you don't see directors like Wes Craven anymore who are coming up with original content and, making this, because like at this point, Hollywood is, I mean, to quote, Richie in Scream 5, like, out of fucking ideas. We're just going back and we're like remaking shit that we already know, or we're just like making similar with like subtle nuances. I mean, like point in case Stranger Things season 4, not that it's bad, I actually quite enjoy it, but it's just like we're hitting that nostalgia bone, because that's what's selling tickets, that's what's getting butts and seats. And what I want to see like the new Wes Craven. I want to see the person who's actually paying attention to what's going on in the world, and not even just like the big glaring things, because obviously someone like Jordan Peele is paying attention to what's going on in the world, but like someone who's paying attention to the things that nobody else is seeing, just like the little things, because that's where like the true horror lies, of just the things that nobody knows about, nobody talks about. And that's kind of where Wes Craven approached filmmaking from.
It would be refreshing. I mean, it's basically like, I as much as I appreciate fandom as a profession. I mean, I hear you asked me about the series idea for Nightmare on Elm Street. I would love it if a Nightmare on Elm Street franchise fan could get a hold of that, and I mean a real fan, somebody who's a fan of the story structure and the qualities of the characters that we follow and understands why and that kind of thing, but also wants to push the story in other parameters and explore things that the franchise hasn't done yet. Like that's all fine and good. And I would love to watch that. But that said, I understand exactly what you mean in terms of like movies getting produced that don't pay homage, at least directly, to anything. That would be, I can't remember the last time I saw a movie that felt like it was Completely sans homage to any franchise, to any notable franchise. Even then, like, I mean, I would even take an obscure reference or something like that, but everything seems to be, so mainstream.
I mean, like, even my favorite movie of the year so far, 2022, has been X, and that is so like Texas Chainsaw Massacre with some Friday the 13th in there as well. Like it's not an original thing. It does it very well. It transcends it to art house, but it's not original. Ty West wasn't doing research and thinking of new ideas. He just took something and put a new spin on
reshaped it. Reshaped it.
Which is brilliant, but it's still we're not getting that. I mean, I'm thinking like last year, because what did we had Malignant, and I mean, like, that was like very far out there, but I'm sure like something like that is not like that concept is not completely original. Last Night in Soho, that had some originality to it. But
it did. It did. I think that's why I got so excited as
Yeah.
I was watching it. But even that, I mean, it's a movie about looking backward, you know.
Yeah.
So in and of itself, I mean, you can't say it's not original, but it is about the past. Like,
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see. I mean, I am not saying that what came before is irrelevant and shouldn't be referenced or shouldn't be put
No,
into
not
some
at
kind
all.
of context because,
No.
you know, lest we forget, we'll be doomed to, you know, just whatever that saying is. We'll be doomed to make the same mistakes over and
Yeah.
over and over again, lest we forget. But ultimately, I think there is so much homage present in cinema today that you know, modern day cinema, that it would be refreshing, to say the least, dare I say trailblazing,
Yeah.
if somebody just kind of made their own thing. But but the problem is, I'm sure there are so many people who want to make their own things and just need to be in the right time with the right people with the right amount of money. You were talking earlier about how hard it is to make a movie.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's just like
yeah.
there's so many people that probably have like great ideas. It's just that there's nobody who, you know, like will look at that script and just be like, yeah, let's do this. You know, that's why, you know, studios like A24, you know, we've talked about this, who take chances on a lot of movies. But studios know that just like everyone wants the same thing. That's why, you know, like if, you know, I make a video on YouTube, it's just like it's going to be more successful if I just talk about the, you know, the same thing that most people want to hear about. Which is fine, but you know, there's so many people out there who, you know, are making really great content that, you know, the masses aren't seeing it because it's just like the algorithm won't allow for you know, people to get noticed because of you know, their ideas or what they're doing. So you know, it's just like it applies to everything. It applies to social media, it applies to filmmaking, and it's unfortunate. But getting back to Nightmare on Elm Street, I think that in terms of the big three, which I'm gonna say is Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street, I would say that Friday the 13th is my least favorite out of those, and I'm talking about the original. Halloween being my favorite, Nightmare on Elm Street being in the middle. And even though I find Friday the 13th, not just the first movie, but as a franchise, a lot more digestible than A Nightmare on Elm Street, I can recognize that in A Nightmare on Elm Street, as a franchise, and especially as this movie is the original, is a trailblazer, because this one is so unlike Halloween and Friday the 13th, because I mean, like, arguably Friday the 13th is just Halloween at a summer camp, and Halloween was already done with Black Christmas. It was just sort of like perfected with Halloween with John Carpenter. So it's like, you know, he made the best version of that movie, but it wasn't 100% original, whereas like Nightmare on Elm Street was 100%, 110% original. So
it was also made by a man who was tired of seeing horror movies where the main girl falls down and breaks her leg or drops the knife twice, you know. And he wanted to give her, it was really about his daughter too. He wanted her to see a girl who could actually handle herself, but who could do it in a completely believable, non-fantastical. That's another thing. It's just like Nancy's incline into Final Girl. It's my favorite because I just love watching her move into position. Because even though I love Sydney and it's beyond anything, for me Sydney really starts to land as the other movies come. Whereas for me with Nancy, I get full-fledged Nancy by the end, not even before. Well before the end.
And the thing with
movie.
Nancy is like we really only have 2 movies with her. They're spaced out between, you know, a movie in between, and arguably, like, you know, I would say that New Nightmare, even though that is Heather Langenkamp, she does transform into Nancy. Like, that is very much in the writing that, you know, she becomes Nancy by the end of the movie.
Heather Langenkamp would agree with you too.
And it would fill my heart if she, would tell me that. But this is what makes me sad, because I mean, like, we're talking about requels and things like that, and just like, you made a reference to Laurie Strode and Halloween dropping the knife twice, and it's just like, obviously Jamie Lee Curtis has built a enormous career for herself, that she's in the public eye, but it's just like, I would want to see, if they were to do a requel type thing, obviously, like we talked about the show, but like, if they were to bring back Nancy, I feel like that is a character who has earned that comeback, like in whatever way that they were to bring her back, whether they did the Halloween 2018 thing or even the Halloween H2O thing and disregarded sequels or whatnot, but just like to get her back, because this is a character who, I would want to see, and I feel, is more consistent of a character throughout her movies, even though there are less movies that feature her, that I think that would make a much better story in terms of like a 40 years later. And you mentioned Sydney, and I agree with you, because it's not a quick ride for her. She develops so much over each one of those movies, and that's why she's my favorite, because she is so transformative that way. She's not like the Linda Hamilton of just like she experienced the first Terminator, and then like, from now on, this is who I am. She had to slowly ease her way into that role, and yeah, like Heather or Nancy, that journey of hers came just in the first movie here, and that's what we see. So, so yeah, I'm in agreement with you there.
Yay! Also, just to bring it back to Wes, because he's the whole reason we wanted to do this. In terms of originality, like, I mean, so much of what inspired him to tell the story and what made him, what it's comprised of, even just like the glove, he was wondering, like, I want some kind of inventive, weapon, but I don't know what and everything. So, well, what since the dawn of time has man been afraid of? And he just started thinking about like cavemen hiding around corners of their caves, like as saber-toothed cats were like trying to scratch at them and everything. And he's like, claws. Okay, so that's tactical. That's something that like man would be afraid of. Like if somebody like held claws at you, you'd probably flinch. So
I
what would
noticed
I
that
do?
that shot at the beginning during the credits where he rips through that kind of burlap fabric really reminded me, I guess, like the poster for The Howling.
Oh,
did you
totally.
see it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did want to say that actually, like, because I don't necessarily find, I mean, you know me, like I don't find anything scary, but especially in Nightmare, like this is probably where, I would have the divide between Halloween, because I could look at Halloween and still find Michael Myers to be scary. With Nightmare, there wasn't really a lot in it that stood out to me and frightened me. However, there were a few things. There was the imagery of the goat and the sounds that the goat was making in the dreams. I found that very unsettling. And every time, and there's just 2 times, but where Nancy would look over and there's Tina wrapped in plastic with the centipede or whatever coming out of her mouth, and just like the snakes.
The eels.
Were they eels? Oh,
yeah.
Even grosser. Just kind of just like Nancy, and that sequence where she's in class, and because we haven't even talked about that, with Lynn Shay as the teacher, by the way.
The teacher.
Of just how she's slipping, and this is again where dream and reality, the lines are blurred, and the student is like up there and he's reading this excerpt from the book, and it's just like goes completely slow motion, and he's saying about like in like the dreams or whatever it is, and she just walks
that I have bad dreams.
Yeah, so creepy. And just seeing the invisible force just dragging Nancy, and then of course the infamous like, "Where's your hall pass? Screw your pass."
No running in the hallway. But
I love how she just ignores it too. Just like, well, this is weird, but I'm gonna, just head down into this boiler room.
Whoever the fuck you are. My dead friend is calling me, and that doesn't happen every day. So get out of my way.
Yeah.
But I also love what follows is just like her descent into the under the school boiler room, and to, his boiler room really, because it's a dream. But she doesn't know that as she's just brightly kind of asking, Tina, and then it starts to turn into like a quivering, like victim-y, like Tina and everything. But I always feel like that moment is when Freddy met Nancy, because even though he's like dipped in over her with the spandex and everything like that, and obviously she had a dream about him before all of this that she references when she talks about the knives that go screech when she talks to Tina about it. But this is like the moment where I feel like they full on confront each other, and like maybe the first time she even addresses him, like as an entity, as a presence in her dream, kind of like putting together who this guy is and what he must have done up until now. And I just love that she moves from kind of terror to being backed up against this wall, just screaming, it's just a dream, it's not real. And he's just like, come to Freddy. It's like, screw you. He's like, just being gross and everything. And the first thing she does to save herself is hurt herself and burn her arm on that pipe and just wake up screaming. I always jump at that point. Like,
she knows it's a dream. And, that's where her intellect is showing through, because I think that we've all been there. Maybe this is something you might refer to as like sleep paralysis, where that you're dreaming and you can't wake up, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be sleep paralysis, because that's where you can't move. But I've definitely had dreams where I know that I'm dreaming, and it's just like, okay, like wake up. Like, how am I gonna, other than telling myself to wake up? How do you wake yourself up?
I have full on tried to pry my eyes open, and it hasn't worked. Like
you're probably like in your mind, you're moving your eyes and stuff, but like you're probably just laying
still, probably
motionless. Like I've had full on dreams where I've like gotten up and gone and done, because I'm just like, I need to do this, and I just like in my mind, I'll do that. Or like this has happened before where, I think that I respond to a message, and I full on remember it, but I never actually did. And then it's just like, oh wait, didn't I respond to that? So it's, maybe it's, there's stranger
I've also slept beside people who have, I also have people I've slept beside who have reverse sleep paralysis, where they are moving like crazy, but they are full asleep. They are not awake at all.
I don't know how that happened. Yeah, that's...
I don't know how that happens either, but it's just like to the point where like their back is like pushing me in the head. And I'm like, whoa, easy. And I'm just like, what an asshole. And then I realized they were not awake at all, because I'm like, would you like, what is wrong with you? And they're just... And I'm like, oh my God. Is this usual? Maybe this won't happen again. Anyway, too much information. But
no, I know what you mean, because I think that I was younger and visiting relatives. Like I think like my cousin and I had to share a bed, and I remember him just like I didn't sleep at all, because it was just like all night, like literally turning like a clock to the point where it's just like, what am I guess I'll just sleep on the floor. I don't know what to do. And, they're not responding to me being like, stop, like wake up. So,
but when was the last time you looked at yourself exasperated in a mirror and said, God, I look 20 years old? Like it was the worst
Which
thing
is like
ever.
Hilarious, because she actually was 20 at the time.
Right.
And I guess like playing like a 15-year-old, is that what... how old she's supposed to be? Because it said that Tina was 15.
I thought she was supposed to be 16, but okay, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember their ages being...
Well, no, because there was a news report, and which I thought was
and they said
hilarious,
girl.
because it's just like, we're talking about like a murdered 15-year-old girl, and they're like her body's literally being shown wheeled out, and the arm falls out from the, the stretcher, and like because that
happens on the news all the time.
Yeah,
that's how you get the ratings.
Yeah,
but
and then of course like Marge quickly turning off the TV, but it always makes me wonder, like, what is the sort of like the timeline of this franchise? Because the next time we see Nancy, you know, the movie Dream Warriors came out 3 years later, but she's, you know, has this maturity about her. Like, she looks like she's 10 years older, which I mean, like, it's, you know, obviously the gray rogue streak. You know, helps with that.
It's on the wrong side. It's on the wrong side in Dream Warriors too.
Well, she could have just,
they got that wrong.
She could have just, you know.
I know. I guess nobody was really. There were other more important things going on. I guess like that's a whole other conversation about that movie. But the other thing that I really appreciate that's introduced through Glenn is just the Balinese dream skills. We don't have to linger on it, but I just feel like that's the beginning of equipping yourself to fight against something, and not even just to fight like in the immediacy of the moment, but to prepare, to strategize, to lay the groundwork for as many ways that you can confront and distill this evil to something that is manageable, and maybe not even manageable, but manageable enough that you can excise it for a while. Because another thing Heather Langenkamp said in an interview about the way the movie ends now, she preferred the original ending where they just drive away and she's like, bye, Mom. And Mom just keeps waving. And then the girls are still playing jump rope. So is there still a threat? Is there always a threat? Question, kind of like question mark. But what I like about the way it ends is because I'm really one for, I don't know if it's nihilism or I don't know, just kind of like a genuine negativity. But it's not. I feel like it's realism. You can defeat the evil, but not ultimately. Like, you can pause it. You can stabilize things and get things, you know, kind of like back to a functioning level again for a while. But there's always going to be something that's going to creep in again. There's always going to be something that wants to gum up the works and ruin your life.
I feel like and again, it's been a while since I've watched them all, but it just seems like every new Nightmare movie, you can't defeat Freddy the same way. Like, it has to be a newfound strategy. It's almost like he's Predator, like he's learned new techniques and, you know, has come back stronger. You know, it's not like Jason where basically all you have to do is drown him in the lake or whatever. That's, you know, it's not as simple as that. But
obviously, even drowning him doesn't work, because you could have telekinesis and get angry at your father, and he'll find a way to resurface. But that one never made sense to me. But I don't care. I love that movie. Yeah. But I mean, just in the sense of like, just like the number of means that Nancy defends herself to the point where she finally can turn her back. And she said that the way the movie ends now, it means Nancy's failed. And I never felt that way. I felt like, no, you succeeded as much as anyone could against this evil. And that's why I respect her and why I don't think it's a failure at all. I think it's something you have to keep doing, you know? It's like life. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, I think that we could probably move on to the cherry picker. All right, let's get to the cherry picker. Okay, first order of business, cherry on top. I think that this is going to be relatively easy. Again, we're most likely in agreement here, but I'll let you narrate this one.
Charles Fleischer. No, I think the cherry on top is clearly Heather Langenkamp as Nancy Thompson.
Agreed.
I mean, Robert Englund, really, really, you know, close second there.
Yeah.
Ronnie is doing the work as the mom, but it's Nancy's movie. It's Nancy's. Yeah. That's what I say.
I agree. You know, Robert will get one of the sequels. You know. All right, cherry picker. Last week, we asked you who deserves to die the most in Jaws. And between Quint and Mayor Larry Vaughn, Patreon, Instagram, YouTube all voted. This was a fucking landslide. I'm not surprised at all. But 51 to 513 for your pick of Mayor Larry Vaughn.
Yeah.
Let's just see what some of the comments are saying about this, because I mean, personally, this is not a shock to me, but
no.
I still want to see what's up with old Larry.
Okay.
Lloyd Gray says, I went with the mayor. Had he just closed the beaches, we wouldn't have had half of these shenanigans. The USS Indianapolis story alone makes Quint an absolute icon, and Quint, like Dido, went down with his ship and went out fighting. Here's to swimming with bow-legged women, boys. All right, Lloyd, you don't have to rub it in my face. You could have just said the mayor. That would have sufficed, but okay. Thomas Baker says, my vote goes to the mayor. He is the reason that people are dead in his town. Plus, if he wanted to show the people that the water is safe to go in, he should have gone in there instead. I agree with that. He lead by example.
Right.
Blue Box 87 says, the mayor and everyone else in town that supported his decision.
Oh, hey, I like that.
The mayor from Jaws is constantly referred to as someone you should not be or act like.
Yeah.
So yes.
And yet.
Silent Saturn says, as a character, I dislike Quint more for being an arrogant, mean-spirited jerk, but at least he is a character, whereas the mayor is just a pantomime villain. He also got lots of innocent people killed, whereas Quint's actions only led to his own demise in the end. The mayor it is. Look, I only picked Quint by default. What else was I gonna
do? I know. You would have picked him first. I totally get it.
Totally would have, yeah. Anthony DePuzzo says, Mayor Vaughn. There's a reason why people still say to this day, don't be like the mayor from Jaws. He is the real villain of the movie. Phil W. says, the easiest / most obvious pick is Mayor Vaughn, although an underrated pick would be the coroner that changed his mind about Chrissy's cause of death. If he had any integrity, then Vaughn wouldn't have been allowed to reopen the beaches.
That's a good observation.
Yeah, it all starts with the coroner.
Oh, stop.
I mean, in that case, you could probably blame Chrissy too. She had died more... less vaguely.
Don't make me laugh.
Okay, I'm sorry. Draven says, Team Eddie on this one. Mayor Vaughn completely turns a blind eye. He cared more about the people's money rather than the people. Other than the first death, the rest could have been avoided if they decided to close the beach. Michael92 says, oh, no doubt the mayor, obtuse to any danger warnings given to him in favor of profit. Quint was just great. Robert Shaw at his very best. Ghostface Gremlin says, I'll go with Eddie. Jesus Christ. Even though he threw my girl Julie under the bus.
Oh, sorry.
Obviously, the I know what you did last summer.
Yeah. Didn't mean to throw your girl. I mean... Sorry. Somebody had to.
TP Hoarder. Oh, I like that. Screw the mayor. Greed. Steve, I will vote for Quint because of his USS Indianapolis monologue that lasted 84 years, followed by 2 sleepy emojis. And then somebody said Larry Vaughn. So, it's... clear that the mayor was
so
obviously
unhappy.
I'm not unhappy. I knew that it would go this way, but you get first dibs. So I'm interested to see who the asshole is of A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Well, you know what? First of all, I think it's me because I just realized I've spent this entire pod calling Ronnie Blakely Ronnie Larson. Ronnie Larson is a playwright. Ronnie Blakely is the actress who played Marge Thompson.
I thought that,
Nancy's mother.
and I was going to correct you, but then I felt like, well, I'm not going to correct someone who knows this movie inside and out. I've
just had a very long day, and I'm very tired. It was a rough one, folks. Sorry. I apologize if anybody was going out of their minds hearing me go on about how much I love her, and yet not getting her name right. I know that drives me nuts when I listen to a pod. I just sit there and go like, it is Ronnie Blakely! But anyway, okay, so now I know, and you know I know, so I don't need no angry DMs. Okay. That said, within the framework of the movie, honestly, it was hard to narrow it down, and there's only one person who really does irritate me, who I honestly believe if they had died in the place of someone else, it wouldn't have hurt the movie. It would have been interesting. It would have felt like justice in a way, and that person is Lieutenant Thompson, Nancy's father. Even though it's John Saxon, and it may seem sacrilege to fans like Zach, the character is actually less involved in Nancy's recovery or whatever, whatever she's doing to try and figure out what's happening to her. Like, at least the mom is taking some responsibility. I feel like all he does is shout orders at his ex-wife and criticize his daughter, or at best criticize kindly, like, that's exactly what you need, princess. You need to get some sleep. And it's like, no, that's not what she needs. If you would actually listen to what she's saying, she's telling you exactly what she needs. And I feel like he's one of those guys who, even when he sees this flaming body on top of his ex-wife and Nancy, I think Nancy's the one who throws the blanket. I can't remember who throws the blanket over him.
He throws the blanket over him.
When he throws the blanket over him, and then they pull the blanket off, and we see that incredible, Party City, corpse reaching up with its arm, falling down into the fog of the bed. Oh, it's so good. And Nancy's flipping out, and he's just standing there. And I feel like, and she says, now do you believe me? And I feel like, no, he doesn't. He doesn't know what to make of what he just saw, but he knows. And I'm not even talking about what we find out in the sequel. I see it in his performance right then and there. He can't compute that. So he's going to spend the rest of his life being in denial about what he just saw. If we're in his dream right now, if everybody's dreaming that they're in this thing, whatever it is, this character, bad news. I think he deserved to die. There's my case. Vote your conscience, vote your heart. How about you, Zach?
Also, we forgot to mention that the deputy is I forget the actor's name, but he plays Sheriff Burke in Scream.
Right.
Do you remember his name?
I have it right here. Hold on,
Joseph Whipp. That's
what
it
you.
Is. Yeah.
Joseph Whipp as Sergeant Parker. Yeah.
Which Wes Craven, in his own personal headcanon, believes is the same character, and that the the Scream and Nightmare movies are in the same universe, which does not make any sense. But bless his heart.
It wouldn't.
Yeah,
that's sweet. That's sweet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my pick, actually. I'm glad you didn't pick them, but I'm gonna go for another father, with Mr. Lance.
Yeah,
Johnny Depp's dad. Because I mean, God, does there even need to be a case made for him? He's just, the same kind of. And I mean, the thing is that if. Presumably, if Glenn is being targeted along with Nancy, his parents are in the same boat of denial that Nancy's parents are in. They know all about Freddy Krueger, they know what's going on, but they're not only disbelieving it, but they're he has the audacity of everyone in the movie. He's the one person who actually calls Nancy. I forget the exact term. You might have just said that she's crazy. Doesn't want her. He doesn't want that kid around. Calls her a kid. Already, that's making Annie from Friday the 13th angry, because we do not compare children to goats. He's an American original, and
Stop it!
I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. Won't let her around their son, who's a good boy, who's not misbehaving or anything. Not only will refuse, they're nosy, they're being snoopy, they want to know why she's calling. Granted, she is calling very late at night, but when someone calls that late, there's something is going on. Your friends are getting murdered. Maybe you should let them speak to one another. Hangs up on her without even letting her get a word in edgewise, and then takes the phone off the hook because it's just that'll teach her. And then what? He might not have died. It should have been him, but he's now has to live with the regret of ignoring Nancy for the remainder of his natural life. So fuck that guy. Fuck that American original. And
the parents of Elm Street are the worst.
Yeah, and he's the worst one. So vote for him. But really vote your heart and your conscience, because if you think that it's Lieutenant what's his first name, Donald?
Good to see you too, Donald. Yes.
Yeah.
Donald Thompson.
Thompson. Yeah.
Lieutenant Donald Thompson.
Then you vote for him. But that poll will be open on Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube. Speaking of Patreon, we have a lot of new supporters to welcome. So hold the applause.
Hey.
Hold the applause.
All right. Until the end.
So I would like to formally welcome T. Samuels, Wade Ross, Vicky McKenzie, Sean Maddox, Dale McLaughlin, Ashley Collins, Boy Who Cried Wolf, Hunter Whitaker, Kirsten Watkins, Tanya Collins, Jen, Charles Bernard, I don't know how to say it, Joseph Broswell, Taro Kivanen, Dakota Rivera, and Jess Williams.
Yay.
So thank you.
Oh my God.
To all of those people that came aboard, presumably because they came aboard to receive the benefits that we offer of the bonus episode of the Cherry Picker, which we call the Cherry Picker After Dark.
After Dark.
Speaking of Final Girls, that was July's episode. We ranked 85 Final Girls.
Wow, did
we? Where did Nancy fall on that list? I don't know. You'll have to subscribe and find out. But if you would like to join my Patreon and receive that tier, that is available, ironically enough, at the Freddy Krueger tier. And for this month of August, the Cherry Picker After Dark episode will be Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 1. So we are going through the entire series, little by little, but we're starting with the beginning. And we're gonna do this as we're actually gonna still have the cherry picker. We're gonna pick the cherry on top and who we think was the most deserving to die in season 1 of Buffy. But it'll be exclusive to Patreon, and it'll also be a ranking of all of the episodes of that season. So if you are a big Buffy stan, I recommend you check that out, because that's what we're doing this month. But on that note, I would also like to thank Andre Felix, our editor, who I already mentioned at the top of the episode, but he's the one who's making this all possible by doing all of the hard computer work. So credit where credit is due. And as well as that, I just want to remind anyone who might be joining the Cherry Picker for the first time, if you are listening to the podcast, you can watch it as a video on YouTube. It's the channel, The Cherry Picker. And if you are watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to the podcast wherever podcasts are streamed. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. And we also have a review on Apple Podcasts.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, which will now read to you. But this comes from Ryan C. Showers, who we all know as the host of the podcast Scream with Ryan C. Showers, which I've been a guest on twice now, and I'm going to be on it again a third time. So actually this month. So this is really sweet of him. But horror-tastic. Zach has a clever, perfectly and precisely executed YouTube channel, which I do. I do have a YouTube channel. I would never say that about myself. But he says the Cherry Picker is a success because the approach here is different. It's much less scripted and more casual, yet remains in the Cherry brand. Eddie is a nice foil to Zach, and they have great banter and contrast. And rivalry.
I'm a foil to
and
you. Yes.
The show has grown so well over time. Very proud to support the show and to share Tuesday horror with Cherry Picker. So if you guys, if for anyone who loves Scream like we do, you can check out Ryan's podcast. He also drops new episodes every Tuesday. So look for that, Scream with Ryan C. Showers. And thank you, Ryan, for the kind words and pointing out what we know but we don't say, the unspoken rivalry, my foil.
That I am the antagonist to your protagonist. Yes.
I think maybe I'm probably more so the antagonist. But
but you're also driving the action, so I don't know. Maybe that should be a Cherry Picker.
I'm the anti-hero.
Who
deserves to die between you and I?
Stop it! Oh okay. God, you're killing me.
I'm sorry. Anyway, where can the good people find you on Soch?
The good Soch people can find me on the Soch Meads at Insta, at Edward is Truth, all one word, and also at how do you make YouTube shorter? Utes at the Utes.
I don't know why you're shortening it.
Because I'm young and hip. Is that something the kids say now?
I feel like everything when I hear Ute, I think of like my cousin Vinny.
Stop it! Oh, I'm gonna kill myself.
Okay, sorry.
All right. No laughter. The day without laughter. All right. On the Utes, look for me at Edward is Truth. You can subscribe. I have a number of movie reactions. Actually, have had quite a few new subscribers in the past few weeks, which I'm incredibly grateful for. Yeah, which make me want to produce more content for all y'all.
You're over the 100 mark, I noticed.
Yeah.
So guys, go over. Growing, if you're subscribed to the Cherry Picker, go over and support Eddie on his channel.
Thank
subscribe.
You. It's fun, apparently. People are having fun.
You can find me on social media. Like Ryan pointed out, I have my own YouTube channel, Zach Cherry, almost at 100,000 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed, go over there. Let's get over that 100,000. There's me abbreviating shit. Mark, and also you can find me on Instagram at RetroBitchface. Twitter at ZachCherry8, and if you want to just follow our joint Instagram account for the podcast, that is at the Cherry Picker Pod. I think that's what it is. Yeah, I am forgetting. Yeah, we've got a really exciting month, but do you know what's going on next week in particular?
Nope.
No.
Nope. Nope.
Yeah, you're right. We got it right.
I am.
Yeah. Jordan Peele's latest movie, Nope, is going to be the hot topic for next week. So that'll be interesting because that's I mean, I feel like most of his movies, or at least like Us as well, is just it feels like it's very polarizing right now. So it'll be interesting to see where both you and I land on that, maybe we'll have a very contentious debate. An episode. Who knows? Or maybe it'll just be boring and we'll both agree. But
echo chamber. I'll have something devised in case of an emergency. In case I end up agreeing with you, I'll have something devised.
Yeah, you'll find some way to fight with me. Some way to foil my presence.
That is who I am. I am the foil. I used to know what those letters stood for something. FOIL stood for something, and I can't remember. I learned it in English Lit in high school.
Off.
It's been so long. No! You don't learn that. Well, you learn fuck. Yeah, you learn. Well, you don't learn that in high school. I knew fuck off before high school, but no, it stood for something. It was not an anagram. Oh God, now see, I can't remember anything. I'm useless. I'm sorry, Ronnie Blakely.
Think about it,
sorry.
And we will let you know if you remember in the next episode, and you can join us then. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will be right back.